et väga kiiresti ja väga lühidalt teile tutvustada professor. Kuulete? Jah, nüüd. Tahan lihtsalt väga lühidalt tutvustada professor Philip Goyret, kes täna räägib meile Paavsti rollist kiriku struktuuris. Professor isa Philip Goyret on sündinud Ameerikas, Raleigis. Ta on elanud ka Uruguay's ja Argentiinas. Enne preestiks saamist õppis Buenos Airese ülikoolis inseneriks. Teoloogia insener on nagu huvitav. Ja aastal 86 koolis Rooma ja ta on elanud Roomas kuni praeguni. Ja Philip Goyret on Rooma Püha Risti Ülikooli teoloogiateaduskonna dekaan ja korraline eklesioloogiaprofessor. Ta on ka Itaalia teoloogiauuringute seltsi erakorraline liige ning San Girolamo della Carità kiriku rektor Roomas. Homme on tema kiriku püha, sest on San Girolamo, kuidas on eesti keeles on Hieronymus, eks ole, Püha Hieronymus homme on. Ja professor Goyret valdkondadeks on eklesioloogia, oikumenia, sakramentoloogia, presterlus ja vaimuteadused. Nagu ma ütlesin, ta räägib täna Paavsti rollist kiriku struktuuris. Loeng on inglise keeles, aga Toomas Vooglaid, me täname teda, väga tõlgib eesti keelde. Nii.
Buonasera.
Tere õhtust.
I have started saying the same words with which Pope Francis started his pontificate from the first floor of St. Peter's Basilica, addressing the people that were there to receive for the first time the apostolic benediction.
Ma alustasin nende sõnadega, millega paavst Franciscus tervitas inimesi, kes olid kogunenud Püha Peetruse väljakul, et võtta vastu tema esimene õnnistus.
Maybe you don't know that the name Francis of the Pope is the first time that is used for a Pope.
Võib-olla te ei tea, et nimi Franciscus on esimene, mida on võtnud ennesele üks paavst.
There is no name more Italian than Francis, because Saint Francis of Assisi was called Francis for the first time. The name did not exist before Francis of Assisi.
Ei ole rohkem Itaalia pärast nime kui Franciscus, sest Franciscus oli esimene selle nimeline Itaalias. Enne seda nime ei eksisteerinud.
I will now try to very synthetically talk about the fundamental aspects of the doctrine of the Church on primacy.
Ma püüan anda väga sünteetilise ülevaate kiriku doktriinist primaatsuse kohta, paavsti primaadi kohta.
I will like to be interrupted. You raise your hand and ask. For me, it will be a pleasure to stop, hear you, and answer you.
Mulle meeldiks, kui te mind katkestate küsimustega, et siis ma peatun ja vastan teie küsimustele.
In St. Peter's Basilica, in the upper part of the walls, you can read there 3 sentences of the Gospel, which are from the Gospel of Matthew, from the Gospel of Luke, and from the Gospel of John.
Püha Peetruse basiilika seinte ülaosas võite lugeda 3 lauset evangeeliumitest, Püha Matteuse, Püha Luuka ja Püha Johannese evangeeliumist.
The sentence of the Gospel of Matthew is when Jesus answers Peter, saying, I tell you, you are Peter, and upon this rock I will build up my church, and so on.
Lause Püha Matteuse evangeeliumist on see, kus Kristus ütleb Peetrusele, et sina oled Peetrus ja sellele kaljule ehitan ma oma kiriku.
I give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven. Whatever you tie on earth will remain tied in heaven. And whatever you this tie loose on earth will be loose in heaven.
Ma annan sinule taevariigi võtmed ja mis sa iganes seod maa peal, on seotud ka taevas ja mis sa vabastad, lased lahti maa peal, on päästetud lahti ka taevas.
The Gospel of Luke, always in the upper part of the walls of the Basilica of St. Peter, says it is during the Last Supper when Jesus tells Peter that Satan is attacking you, but don't worry, I have prayed for you so your faith doesn't fail. And you, once you are converted, confirm your brethren.
Lause Püha Luuka evangeeliumist pärineb viimselt õhtusööma ajalt, kui Kristus ütleb Peetrusele, et saatan püüab teda rünnata, aga ära karda, ma olen sinu eest palvetanud, et sinu usk ei kõiguks ja kui sa pöördud, siis kinnita oma vendi.
And then the Gospel of John is in chapter 21st, after the resurrection, before the ascension, when Jesus, after asking 3 times, Peter, do you love me? Because 3 times Peter had denied the Lord. At last he tells Peter, you keep my sheep.
Ja lause Johannese evangeeliumist pärineb 21. peatükist, kus Kristus pärast ülestõusmist küsib Peetruselt 3 korda, kas ta armastab teda. Ja Peetruse kinnituse järel annab talle ülesande hoida tema lambaid.
We could add to this biblical passage also every time that Peter takes the initiative to answer, also the fact that in the 4 lists of the names of the 12 apostles that exist in the 4 Gospels, Peter is always the first and Judas is always the last.
Me võime siia lisada veel asjaolu, et kõigis 4 kohas, kus on toodud ära apostlite nimekiri, on Peetrus kõikides nimekirjades esimesel kohal ja Juudas alati viimasel kohal.
This is why, according to Revelation, Peter was constituted by Jesus as chief of the apostles and as chief of the church.
Sel põhjusel on Peetrus käsitletud siis jumaliku ilmutusesse näidatud Peetrust olevat apostlite pea ja kiriku pea.
What I have just said is more or less not only Catholics, but also other Christians more or less agree. Not always, but more or less. The problem begins with what happens after the death of Peter.
Selles osas, mida ma nüüd rääkisin, on suurem osa kristlasi, mitte kõik, aga siiski enamus, enam-vähem ühel meelel. Aga lahkhelid tekivad sellest, mis juhtub pärast Peetruse surma.
Can we say that the historical witness that we have after the death of the apostles give testimony of someone who was retained the successor of Peter?
Kas me võime öelda, et pärast Peetruse surma
if we can say that after the death of Peter and of the apostles, are there historical witness of someone who was successor of Peter?
Kas võime öelda, et pärast apostlite ja Peetruse surma on meil ajalooline tunnistaja või tunnistus selle kohta, et Peetrusel on primaat? Et ta on siis see järglane on Peetruse ametijärglane.
According to Catholic theology, the answer is yes.
Katoliikliku teoloogia kohaselt on vastus jaatav.
And there are three main examples. The first one is Saint Clement of Rome, who was Pope, Bishop of Rome, and who wrote a letter to another diocese, they were not called diocese at that time, that it was Corinth, giving instructions and also punishing them for someone bad that they had done.
Esimene tunnistus pärineb pealt Clemensilt Roomast, Rooma piiskopilt, kes oma kirjas korintlastele
punishing them.
Ja, karistas neid või andis neile karistuse. Did you say for what?
Diocese?
Did you say for which punishment? Which for what?
Well, it didn't say, but it was a punishment because they had removed their own authorities.
Okay. Et andis neile karistuse, kuna nad olid kõrvaldanud õigustatud autoriteedi.
Then we also have the testimony of Saint Ignatius of Antiochia at the end of the first century, that when he was going to Rome, he wrote to the Romans, and at the beginning he said, I write to the Church of Rome, who is the first of the churches, and leads all the other churches in charity.
Teine tunnistus pärineb pühalt Antiochia Ignatiuselt, kes olles minemas Rooma, kirjutas roomlastele kui esimesele kirikule.
And then also Saint Irenaeus, already in the second century, who says that we have to obey and follow the bishops, because the bishops are the successors of the apostles. And we have the lists of all the bishops of the different churches. And now I will give you the list of the bishops of Rome, which is the church with which all the other churches have to obey.
Ja kolmas tunnistus pärineb siis Pühalt Ireneuselt, kes kirjutas, et me peame kuulatuma piiskopidele, kuna nad on apostlite järglased, järeltulijad. Ja nüüd ma annan teile Rooma piiskopide nimekirja.
These are the main witnesses. Then there are a lot more, but it doesn't have sense here to talk about all these other testimonies. Now I will jump to the 19th century.
On veel teisi tunnistusi, aga ei ole mõtet neid kõiki siin üles lugeda. Ja nüüd ma hüppan 19. sajandisse.
When the first Vatican Council was celebrated and where the doctrine on primacy was established.
Hüppan 19. sajandisse, kui peeti Vatikani esimest kirikukogu, kus defineeriti Paavsti esmaseisus.
Synthetically, that doctrine talks about the infallibility of the Pope and the power of government.
Kokkuvõtlikult öeldes räägib see doktriin Paavsti ilmeksimatusest ja tema valitsemisvõimust.
About the infallibility of the Pope, I would like to explain briefly. First, that it is very rarely used.
Ilmeksimatuse kohta tahan kõigepealt öelda, et seda kasutatakse väga harva.
Some people think that every time that the Pope is speaking, also in breakfast, he is talking with using his infallibility.
Mõned inimesed arvavad, et iga kord, kui paavst midagi räägib, olgu see või hommikusöögi ajal, kasutab ta oma ilmeksimatust.
For example, Pope Francis' football team is San Lorenzo de Almagro, which is a football team of Buenos Aires. And he really is fanatic of St. Lawrence. But that doesn't mean that is not infallible, thanks to God.
Näiteks on paavst Franciscuse lemmik jalgpallimeeskond Buenos Aires San Lorenzo meeskond ja ta on täiesti fanaatiline fänn, aga õnneks ei ole see ilmeksimatuse väljendus.
What is infallible is that the best team of Buenos Aires is River Plate, which is my team.
Mis on ilmeksimatu on see, et hoopis teine Buenos Aires meeskond on parim, mis on minu lemmikmeeskond.
When the Pope wants to talk in an infallible way, he first explains that he will do it in an infallible way. Second, he talks as Pope, not as a private theologian. And third, he has to talk about faith or morals, not of football.
Kui paavst määratleb midagi ilmeksimatult, siis on vähemalt 3 tingimust, millele see peab vastama. Esiteks ta ütleb, et ta teeb seda. Teiseks ta peab rääkima kui paavst, kui kiriku pea, mitte kui tavaline teoloog. ja kolmandaks, ta peab määratlema mingi usu või moraali küsimuse, mitte jalgpalli teemal.
And about the power of government, the first duty of the Pope is that the bishops, individually and as a college, work well. That's his first job.
Ja valitsemisvõimu kohta tuleb öelda, et paavsti esimene ülesanne on tagada piiskopite kogu ühtsus.
Then he also has a role for the whole church, giving pastoral orientations, addressing the faithful, establishing, for example, a jubilee year, like he did, and most especially encouraging evangelization.
Ja siis on teised ülesanded, nagu näiteks kirikule pastoraalsete orientiiride andmine, evangeliseerimistöö juhtimine, näiteks juubeliaastate välja kuulutamine.
Evangelization. Encouraging evangelization.
Õhutada, julgustada, suunata evangeliseerimist.
I would like now in this moment to stop, and if someone wants to ask or add something, or maybe there's something that I said that was not understood, please ask.
Tahaksin nüüd peatuda ja paluda teil küsida, kui midagi jäi arusaamatuks või on mingi küsimus. Palun küsige.
There's a question there. If you hear, you translate me. Again.
Just
okay. Vabandust, ma ei ole eestlane, ma ei räägi eesti keele, aga ma räägi inglise keel. Ma küsime inglise keele, vabandust. So I understand that there was always some sort of an authority of the Bishop of Rome within the Catholic Church, and I'm asking us that, like the examples you brought up with Saint Clement of Rome and Antioch, Saint Ignatius of Antioch, and with Saint Irenaeus, so there's this clear evidence of having some sort of an authority of the Pope, but I'm asking whether this big jump from the 1st or 2nd century until the 19th century brought some additional elements into the role of primacy and the way how we understand it. Is that really the same thing as how they would understand it in the 2nd century?
You didn't understand the question?
See kõlab niimoodi, et ma ei kuule hästi. It sounds so that I cannot understand this.
Yeah, so how can I answer?
It is in English. It was in English. It isn't there.
I didn't hear. Can you repeat synthetically the question?
So I'm asking if the way how they understood the role of the Pope and his respect and authority within the Catholic Church, is it the same as we understand it like in the 19th century? Isn't there some sort of a change?
Oh, I see. I see. Now I understand. Okay. Mainly the answer is yes, it's the same. However, in the 20th century, we had the Second Vatican Council, where the doctrine on bishops was better explained, and so it completes all the authority of the Church. The Catholic Church is not commanded only by the Pope, but also by the bishops. The bishop here is Father Philip Jourdan, not the Pope.
Shall I repeat the question first? Yes. Ma kõigepealt kordan küsimust. Küsimus oli siis selles, et kas need kiriku algusaegadel mõistsid need tunnistajad Paavsti primaati samamoodi kui nüüd näiteks 19. sajandil, kui see defineeriti Vatikani esimesel kirikukogul. Ja vastus oli, et põhimõtteliselt oli sama, aga 20. sajandil Vatikani teisel kirikukogul täiendati seda õpetust veel täpsustades piiskopide rolli. Ja sellega võeti tervikuna kokku see valitsemisvõim. Et ainult paavst ei ole kirikupea, vaid koos piiskopide kolleegiumiga.
Is there another question? There's a question there.
Teine küsimus.
The problem is that we don't understand when you talk there. If you can...
Kas saate natuke lähemal tulla, et siin Kaja natuke vastu kuule hästi seda?
No, I don't see him.
The question is maybe not exactly connected to today's theme, but why the center of the Catholic Church was developed in Rome exactly?
No, very good question. Very good question. The Church of Rome is the center of the Catholic Church because the successors of Peter are the bishops of Rome. The Bishop of Rome is successor of Peter. So what we have said about Peter continues in the Bishop of Rome. That's the fundament of his power. Not everything. For example, Peter wrote a letter, and as such is an infallible, the two letters, and are infallible as all the books of the New Testament. Instead, if the Pope just writes a letter, it doesn't mean that it's infallible.
Rooma kujunes katoliikluse keskuseks, kuna Rooma piiskopid olid Peetruse järeltulijad ja sellisena kannavad edasi Peetruse autoriteeti, aga mitte kõiges. Näiteks Peetrus kirjutas oma 2 kirja, mis on ilmeksimatud ja on pühakirja osa, aga kui Rooma piiskop kirjutab lihtsalt kirja, siis praegu see ei ole ilmeksimatuse väljendus.
And why the succession of Peter takes place in Rome? Because the Church of Rome was founded by Peter, and Peter died as martyr in Rome. That's the fundament.
Ja miks on siis just Rooma kirik see, kus Peetruse ametijärglased on seetõttu, et Peetrus rajas Rooma kiriku ja suri märtrina Roomas. Ja tema järglased sellel piiskopitoolil on siis tema ametijärglased.
I would like now to share with you what are the priorities of this pontificate of Pope Francis and what is his style of Pope.
Ma tahaksin nüüd jagada teiega mõtteid selle kohta, mis on paavst Franciscuse prioriteedid ja milline on tema valitsemise